All right, let's continue this conversation, Curtis. I want to show a little bit of ChatGPT because I know AI. Kent brought it up earlier, where you could practice with AI, right? I've got a prompt that we've been using. So what I would suggest is everybody who's with RedX, and everybody who's going to be with RedX, if you guys can put the little QR code at the bottom so people could sign up. You get this number that I've tried multiple times. I actually recorded one whole live session calling on the spot, and I chose the hard one because the hard one works like this. You say, I choose option 3, which is the hardest, means you're going to get this person objecting to you 3 times, live person. So they're going to say no to you 3 times. Nope, not interested. No, not really. No, sorry. So you're practicing. But what I would do is I'd do exactly what Curtis said, grab the transcript, put it into ChatGPT, and then have it recreate a prompt for you. But on top of that, I've got a prompt that I'll share with you, and you can practice with ChatGPT so that you could choose to have an expired, for sale by owner, just listed, just sold. It doesn't matter which route you go. But the idea is, I'm going to put this up on my screen so people can see the prompt, because I'm going to run it live on my phone so that you guys can hear it better. All right, let me share my screen. And Curtis and I always love to do this, where we just go off on a tangent, and we're like, surprise, everybody. This wasn't on the schedule, but now we're going to talk about it. So let me see if we can zoom in there a little bit more. I'm going to create a Google Doc so I can share this with you. And for everybody that's on here, we'll send this out as well with that link that Curtis shared with us, that link that had the university, where it had, who was it? Kent and who else on there, Curtis? That was going...
Jonathan Matwire.
Jonathan, that's it. Yep. So what you want to do is, if you read this, because I'm going to read this with you, all right? If you read this, you're able to see here. Let me dive in deeper. It says you are a seller GPT, so you can change it to whatever you want, right? A homeowner whose listing expired. We will speak back and forth in voice mode. That means you're going to hear me. Keep each reply brief and conversational, 1 or 2 sentences, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes, step 1, at the start, randomly choose relist timeline. So I'm leaving it up to them, right? I'm going to relist in 30 days or 90 days or whatever. And then they have a price point. And look at the key motivating factors, right? Relocating, downsizing, financial pressure. I'm leaving it up to them, to AI, which is crazy. And then they'll give me their address, which I usually call up and say, hi, is this the owner of 123 Main Street or whatever? And then step 3, throughout the call, sprinkle in common seller objections. I might go back to my last agent, which that means I have to be prepared for this, and you do too. I'm thinking about renting instead. And we just went through the ones that I usually go through. That's what I added. And then stay in character until, this is the cool part, until I say pause. And then it gives me feedback instantly where I'm at, and I can have it resume. And then when I say end, it'll give me a grade 0 to 10. And to me, I mean, dude, the grades back to me, because the very first time I tried it, because I was like up fumbling.
Yeah.
I got a 4. And I was like, I hate you, ChatGPT. That was stupid. And then it gave me an 8 the second time. So I was happy. Let's see. Let's see. This is just like the discrete event simulation I used to write CCP. Yeah, that's amazing. Julie,
I'm going to drop one more comment in here for people.
Shoot.
Because we should probably do an hour on AI sometime. Maybe that next month we do a podcast on AI. Because we're pretty heavily entrenched in AI as well. So I just gave a prompt framework for people that's still the best way to get the best output on ChatGPT, regardless of what you're asking. So it's kind of a fill in the blanks there for your prompt framework to yeah. So it's pretty awesome. But we should spend an hour next month doing that.
Let's do that next month, guys. We'll play it live next month. For now, I'll send everybody the prompt so you guys can play with it in the chat. And then let's go right into our next topic. Curtis?
Yeah, I would love to. Let me figure out how to share my screen on something real quick.
All right, you tell me, and then I'll keep talking. One of the things that I want you guys to do in everything that you're listening to right now, and yes, Ernie, we'll send that link over. We'll put the RedX link there. I want you to start thinking, where do I want to start with this based on my market? Do I want to start with social? Do I want to start with expireds? Do I want to start with for sale by owners or for rent by owners? I'll tell you, my market, I'm in California, Los Angeles, and Ventura County, and our market is normal. That means if something is priced really well, it does get multiple offers. But if something's overpriced, it doesn't move very fast. So think, where do you want to start with everything you're listening to? All right, what do you got here?
Yeah, well, this goes right in line with exactly what you're saying. Is our number one source of business is always our sphere of influence, but the average or your database, but the average database in America, according to research from NAR, is 300 to 500 people. And a lot of those 300 to 500 people, I have 1,500 on here just because I thought, somebody has a bunch. Typically, they're going to be buyer leads, right? So if you fill your CRM with buyer leads, then, or internet leads, I'll say, that have a really low conversion, there's not a lot of listings that come out of that group of people. So then you are grinding, trying to get referrals. And that works. And that's a strategy everyone should have, especially with your past clients. But the average listing rate in America in the last 12 months is about 6%, with half of those selling, 46% selling, right? So we're under 3% turnover rate. And if you are just have an average database, that's what your listing rate is. So I'm going to skip FRBOs. I'm going to come back to those, but I'm going to go through these. So pre-foreclosures right now, this is the previous 12 months of data. It's about 3 weeks old. So, but it's not going to change in 3 weeks. Pre-foreclosures right now are only listing at a 13%, right? That's how many end up on the MLS. FSBOs right now is 31.4%. Of all the FSBOs, 31.4% end up on the MLS within, this is an average time of 6 weeks.
Okay.
And with expireds and canceleds, it's 44%.
Dude, hold on. This is amazing. I didn't see this before. By the way, I'm going to need this graphic. I'm going to confiscate this graphic from you, Curtis. But
well, and we update this every 7 days. So if people are on our newsletter, most of this information is in our newsletter. So just go to our website and sign up for the newsletter. Every Monday, we send out a bunch of stats about what's going on in the marketplace as it relates to what we're doing. And then we give you tips on how to use that data when talking to buyers or talking to sellers. But let me show you the craziest thing.
Show me.
Is what we're talking about is for rent by owners. Is when we look at for rent by owners, the list rate in the last 12 months is actually lower than the average list rate for the whole country. Less people are selling their rentals right now than before. However, one, look at the percent that sells compared to any other percent that sells. Right? There's some great takeaways from that.
Yeah.
And
I'm seeing 49% expireds sell. Is that what I'm looking at correctly?
After they get listed. Yeah, 61% of for rent by owners sell. Part of that is there's less emotional attachment to a rental property than there is your primary residence. So the likelihood of you being able to price that right in today's market is much higher with a for rent by owner than it is any other source. But here's what's crazy. When we look at the pool of for rent by owners that were contacted and talked to an agent, and we only know if it was a RedX agent because that's the data set we have, right? The list rate is closer to 40%, which tells me this. what we call a for rent by owner is a rental property that is being managed by the owner. And at the point that we give that to you is when they are looking for a tenant. So if anybody's ever owned property, you know that you love them as long as they cash flow. And as soon as you have a problem or as soon as you have a vacancy, they're a liability. They're frustrating. So at the highest point of frustration, if you're talking to a landlord, a homeowner, saying, and the script is really easy. It's, if I could put more money in your pocket versus you continuing to rent this out yourself, is that worth 15 minutes of your time?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a conversation. We're seeing extremely high list rates. We're seeing close to 40% of those investors are listing their homes for sale. In many cases, the reason is they have no idea how much equity they have in them. And when they start looking at how much equity they have in the home, even pricing it right to sell in this market, they're going, I would rather take that cash now than continue to rent this out. Right. The other reason for rent by owners, sometimes there's a lot of inherited properties, and I rent it out and I'm trying to manage it myself, and I only have one rental property, and then an agent calls and says, well, let me show you how to get out of that property. Right. Anyway, that's we can stop presenting.
No, I love that.
But,
I'll remove it.
I just wanted to, we're talking about for rent by owners and absentee owners for a second. I wanted people to understand this is a tremendous listing opportunity in this market.
All right. So a few questions. Number one, where do we find, if we're already with RedX, where do we find the number for calling?
The role play number?
Yeah, the role play number.
So just, so it's something we wouldn't give out here because it's only for customers. If you go to the chat support and just ask them, they'll give you that.
In the back end chat support. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Okay, good. That's question number one. Question number two is, dude, what do you, this is a question for you and everybody listening.
All right.
What do you think of like Kent when he said, because I wrote this down, because now that I'm looking at this hits differently. Okay.
Right.
Kent said, I start my day calling expireds, right? So I'm looking at this chart, 49% sold.
Yep.
Then I go to number two. Well, he does expireds, right? So that's twice. Then he goes to for rent by owners, right? Which is number two, which, okay, now I see it makes a lot of sense because even though there's less, there's a higher percent chance of them listing, right?
Yep.
It makes total sense. And then go ahead.
And I was going to even say, because then he does just listed, just sold circle prospecting.
Yep.
But if we really got into it with Kent, it's the circle prospecting in a lot of ways is two reasons. He's fulfilling a promise to his listings.
Yep.
That he's saying, in one of the values that he brings is he's going to proactively try to find a buyer. He's not just going to list it and hope another agent brings a buyer. Yep. And so he's calling around his listings, because statistically people move within 10 minutes of their friends, family, and coworkers. And so the likelihood that someone around your listing knows who's going to buy that house is really high. So he's calling around listings for one, to fulfill a promise to his listings, but that also works because they end up, you end up double siding a lot of deals. The second reason he does that is because when you prospect like Kent does, you run out of expireds to call. And you run out of FSBOs to call. As the market changes, his time spent calling anything but expireds and for rent by owners goes down.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then the other piece that I wanted to add to that question, that was my question, right? You answered it.
Yeah.
This is something I noticed too, and he said it, and so did Rachel. And that was, they skip for sale by owners because they don't want to deal with that type of personality. And I can totally get it, by the way, because I don't know that I'm always in the mood to deal with that either. So that was a really cool thing to see for everybody
Mhm.
here, because you can choose where you feel most comfortable,
Right.
right?
Well, and I would say if you know yourself, go take one of a million, personality assessment tests. If you're analytical, then maybe FSBOs are going to be your jam, right? Because they're thinking about it and they're crunching numbers and they're saying, I don't want to discommission. They're putting it out there, and for sell by owners might be the exact person you're going to connect with
Yeah,
over you know an alpha personality expired listing that's really wants to blame our industry for why their home didn't sell, right?
very true.
So and my experience, I sold cars before I got into real estate, and there were certain people that would come into the dealership, and it was a joke because all of the salesmen would disappear like cockroaches when you turn on the light, when certain people would come in on the lot. And I just learned how to communicate with those people, and I sold a ton of cars to highly analytical people that you just learn to communicate with them different. And so but yeah, I think it's cool that there's choices. And if you look at for sell by owners, that's a really high list rate,
No, that
right?
is
5 times what your sphere of influence or your database is going to list at. So
very true. Very true. Well, Mark and I, Mark on the team, Mark
yeah.
Rader.
Oh, yeah.
Mark's been calling Just List. It just sold a lot, but I just snapped this and I've sent it to him. I'm like, dude, you need to switch over to expireds
Yeah.
and you need to switch over to FRBOs
Yeah.
ASAP.
Yep.
So that's going to be a fun one. Some questions. Roger says, I wish I could get the phone numbers for renters in my area, especially condo communities, because they usually want to purchase in that neighborhood. How do we solve for that with RedX?
That's harder because everything that we do, you don't solve for it with RedX, if to be candid, because our job is to find the homeowner and their phone number, because everything we do is on the listing side. Um, uh, Basic like phone book searches is typically where they look for phone numbers associated with the resident of the property. So something simple like whitepages.com even would be able to do that. But don't think for a second that I'm not going to write that down and go talk to the product team and go, hey, what if there's a toggle switch that says give me the resident versus the homeowner?
That's
Right?
actually a really good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in some markets that's amazing because buyers are heavily needed, right? All right. So when we're looking at for rent by owners, because we already went way over on this because I needed to show you some things.
Yep.
I'm going to just go the 3 opportunities that we have for rent by owners because we do list these. Let me just grab. I had Kent. I was texting Kent. All right. Here are the 3 opportunities when we call them. The very first one, when you're reaching out to for rent by owners, these are people who you don't know if they own multiple properties. Sometimes you do on the back end of RedX. Sometimes it tells you, hey, they actually own a few other ones. But the number one way is I reached out. I'll give you my best story, Curtis. I got somebody that was renting a townhome in my neighborhood, called them up, and I just said, hey, Curtis, it's Tristan. Listen, how's it going with that lease I work with? And then I told them who I work with at the time, and say, oh, you know what, it's going pretty well. We have some interest in it. I think I might end up leasing it. I said, great. Well, that was number one, right? How's it going with the lease? Super conversational. It's going well. You're a real estate agent. Awesome. And then I said, well, do you have anything else where it's not going well? Right? Any other properties that you own that are leased that are not going well? And he said, well, now that I think about it, I have this one that's a pain, Tristan. I was like, oh, this actually works. This is a little bit better. I said, okay, tell me more about that. And he said, well, it's in an area where it's hidden, and every time we try to lease it, it just doesn't. And in fact, right now, it's empty, and we're thinking of selling it. right? So question number 2 is, I'm happy that you're happy right now with your current leased property or one that you're about to lease. But do you have anything that's not making you happy or
Yep.
making you money? That's
Yep.
number 2. And then they say, yeah, you know what? Everything that I own, Tristan, is great. I love it. And I say, great. Well, have you thought about adding to your arsenal of listings, right? To your arsenal of properties? Have you thought about adding more? Are you ever in the market to buy anything if it's an amazing price? And then I go into different stories how, because we're in this business, I always look at properties. I'm like, ooh, that's a great opportunity and I can't buy it. So I send it to my investors,
Right.
right? So then that becomes the third option. It's not just, oh, you're not interested. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day, right?
Yep. Can I add a fourth?
Yes. Give me the diamonds.
Yeah. Yeah. The fourth is, if they say, no, I'm pretty happy, Tristan, I'm happy with, I'm not trying to add, I'm just holding right now. The fourth one is no problem. It looks like you're managing these properties yourself. Would it be worth your time to talk to someone that might be able to help manage those properties if they could put more money in your pocket? And because the partnership that you could have, a lot of brokerages have that in your office, right? So that's convenient. But if you don't, guess who knows a lot of people who want to sell and tenants who want to buy properties is a good property management company.
That's very true.
So the referral relationship that you could have, if they go, yeah, actually that might be worth it, and you go, great, I'll just do a quick intro over email and let you take it from there. What's your best email? Because then you're collecting that and adding that. But I've seen that the partnership that agents can have by just referring, all of a sudden the reciprocation of referrals when a landlord wants to sell their homes, sometimes it's a full portfolio. So
I like that, man. I just added that to my fourth thing.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let me just put a plug in here. If there's any agents listening in Birmingham, Alabama, I have a portfolio of rentals that I would love to sell. And I even tried to sell one and it expired. And of course, I blocked my number from my own service because I wanted to see who was calling from other services calling expireds. And one, I had 80 phone calls on the first day. Only 2 of them didn't. 78 of them showed up as spam.
Damn.
And I didn't answer them. So I answered the 2, and they were not using a service. They were, calling from their phone. So be careful of the service you use. This is why RedX does spam monitoring, spam flag remediation on the phone numbers. But I only answered the phone 2 times, and neither one of them followed up with me once.
No way.
And I told them, they said, yeah, this one expired, but I have 6 I'd like to sell.
And then who would you end up giving these to that they expired, or one?
That's why I'm throwing it out there. Somebody call me. Like somebody email me and say, I'll do the, I'm a driver.
Birmingham, Alabama?
Yeah.
Just let me Google how to get a license there. Hold on.
So I do have a property management, but when I had rentals locally, I manage them myself. And of course I did a dumb thing. I sold them in 2017 thinking there's no way that I could ever make more money on these properties than I could right now. And they're worth 4 times as much as they were when I sold them in 2017.
Holy crap.
4 times. Yeah. But I did the same thing on webinar. I'd say, I'm a for rent by owner. I hate them when I'm looking for a tenant. I hate doing background checks. I hate looking at applications.
Me too.
I hate showing the property, but I'm managing myself because I had a couple of duplexes and I wanted to, I know more now. I would hire a good property management company. But at the time I thought, well, I'm saving money, so I can cash flow better. And if anybody would have reached out and said, can I just show you your equity position? and see if you want to sell instead of keep dealing with this, I would have said, please meet me right now.
Interesting.
So you know, I think for rent by owners are the most underutilized lead type there is.
Yep.
And it's a fantastic listing, and the data, you can't argue the data. If you get the list, if you contact them and have a conversation, the list rate is really high and the sell rate is higher than any other lead type, because, you know, they're going to price it right.
Yeah, there's less of an emotional tie. I think that's going to be the key.